The app I helped create has 1 million unique users each month, and at 12:17 p.m. on a Wednesday, our app single-handedly destroyed the lunch rush for over 147 locations all over the US. Customers were staring at loading screens, managers were frantically calling our support line, and franchise owners were losing tens of thousands of dollars every hour. And it's all because of a single, slow API endpoint that I helped build in 2017. But here's the crazy part. The fix that saved everything was so simple, I was embarrassed I didn't think of it sooner. One tiny code change took our app from over 8 seconds of load time to 533 milliseconds, which is 15 times faster. Now, this isn't just another story about fixing slow code. By the end of this video, you'll know the exact 3 mistakes that kill app performance, the diagnostic steps that work every single time, and the simple solution that 90% of developers miss. But first, let me tell you about the day where everything went wrong. Everything looked perfect, but it really wasn't. The feature I built seemed ridiculously simple on paper. Just one API endpoint that takes in a restaurant ID and splits out the menu information, the pricing, and the images for the ordering screen. I thought I had it nailed. Clean code, proper error handling, and good documentation. My manager was happy, the team was happy, and the front end said it was working great. But now that I can reflect, I made 3 critical mistakes. When we first deployed the app, everything seemed perfect. The front end looked amazing, the design was clean, and we hit #1 on the food category, so like unique food category, on the App Store within the first week it was deployed. My API worked exactly like I designed it. Step 1, we called a third-party provider for the restaurant information, which includes the opening hours, location, contact information, ordering acceptance status, and all that kind of stuff. Step 2 was to call another endpoint for the complete menu so people can see all the item names, description, prices, dietary information, and the availability of these products. And then step 3 was a call to a third endpoint for images, which had all the main photos. And then finally, there was a step 4, which combined everything into perfect data. So like we data massaged everything. So the front end only had to do one call to our backend, and then our backend is the one that called all these other applications. Now, our application had to call different endpoints. This felt like textbook microservice architecture. Clean separation, each service had its own job. This is how big tech companies do it, and really just like tech companies in general. For 2 weeks, we had it down, no complaints. Then Wednesday morning happened. This was like the wake up call we needed for our application, because we read a review and the review said, "Why the f is this app so slow?" That was from a user in Phoenix. 1-star review. But she wasn't alone. There was another review. Tried to order lunch, stared at a loading screen for 8 minutes, went to Taco Bell instead. This was a user from Dallas. And then there was another one. This app is slower than dial-up internet. How is this even possible in 2017? This was from a user in Austin. The franchise owners were calling my CEO directly. My manager pulled me into a conference room and asked the question that still pretty much haunts me today. I kind of have it in the back of my mind all the time. And it's, what exactly did you guys build? I thought our response times were fine. We had tested everything. But when I actually measured an API performance under real world conditions, I discovered this. And that was that some users were waiting for over 8 seconds for a single endpoint to load. 8 full seconds just to see a menu. And here's a shocking statistics about applications. 73% of users abandon an app that takes longer than 3 seconds to load. We weren't just losing customers, we were destroying entire lunch rushes for over 100 locations in the US. Let me break down exactly how those 8 seconds actually were contained. So we did like a network call 1 to our restaurant information, which is about 800 milliseconds to 2 seconds. This call includes like waiting for the third-party API server to respond. There's also like network latency and processing time on their end. Then there was a second call, which is the menu items that took anywhere from like 1 to 3 seconds. This was often the slowest call because it had to process hundreds of menu items, check availability, and calculate pricing. Then there was network call 3, which is about 600 milliseconds to 1.5 seconds. This included like the loading the images, the metadata, and the URLs for, dozens of food photos. And then there was data processing, which was my part, which is about 200 to 500 milliseconds, which was massaging those first 3 requests into an object that I could send to the front end. Now, this was by far the fastest part, but I already had the data. We didn't have to worry about any kind of latency. Now, when you add up all of these calls and all these numbers, plus the fact that these calls happen one after another, not in parallel, you get a painful 8 seconds of load time. But what you can see here is that it has nothing to do with like my code, right? It's all third party that we were relying on. So how can we fix this? Well, mistake one that I made was the optimization phase that barely helped. My first instinct was classic developer thinking. I just need to optimize these network calls. I was convinced that this was the answer. I spent hours researching HTTP performance. I made two changes that should have worked, in my opinion, at the time. There was change one, which was connection pooling, which was the technical solution. Every time your app makes an HTTP request to another service, it normally opens a brand new connection. You can kind of think of this like when you make a phone call. You like take out your phone, you dial up the number, and you wait for someone to pick up and have your conversation. And then once you're done, you hang up. Opening and closing these connections can take a long time if you have a whole bunch of them. So a lot of time when your app is handling hundreds of users, connection pooling is like keeping several phone lines on at once instead of dialing a number every time you need a new call. You grab one phone line, make your request, then you put the line back. Overall, this should have saved us a massive amounts of time. Now, change two was now making all these requests parallel, which was a little bit more of a logical approach. Instead of making calls one after another, I made them happen simultaneously. So why wait for restaurant information before fetching the menu items? Both pieces of information are somewhat independent. This could, in theory, cut the response time in half. So we actually did both. We made the few fixes, and within a few hours, the connection pooling worked, and we were able to call certain endpoints separately, which overall dropped our 8-second call to about 4 seconds. This was good, but it wasn't good enough, right? The performance was still pretty bad. Worse, it was kind of inconsistent. One user might get 4 seconds, but the next might get 6 seconds because we're still dependent on the network latency from the third-party provider. If their servers were slow, we were slow. If their database was overloaded, our users had to wait. But the real breakthrough was still coming, which brings me to really the second mistake I made, which was the smart solution that really just made everything worse. The next idea outside of the connection pooling sounded brilliant to me. If making calls faster wasn't enough, why not load all the data ahead of time before users even asked for it? This felt proactive, maybe even sophisticated. I was going to outsmart the performance problem entirely. I wrote what's called a cron job to periodically fetch all the data and store it locally in our database. If you don't know what a cron job is, it's a scheduled task that runs automatically at specific intervals, like setting an alarm that goes off every 10 minutes when it rings your computer, or automatically runs a specific program. In my case, I built a background process that would, every 10 minutes, loop through all the restaurants in our system, call the third-party APIs for each restaurant, pull down the restaurant information, and the menu items and all the images, and then save everything in our database, almost like clone the microservices that we were calling in our database. And if the item was new, add it to the database. If it was changed, then we're going to overwrite what we have in our database. Now, this actually did kind of solve the problem. Load times dropped to just like 1 second. However, I got a Slack message, I think like the next day, maybe 2 days later, that half the menu was missing. And that's when I made a new discovery that afternoon that really made my stomach drop. The third-party APIs weren't as predictable as like we as a team thought. So there was a couple problems. So problem one was the data structuring hell, which I'm calling. So in the morning, the APIs returned breakfast and menu items with certain categories and pricing structures. And then around noon, the entire response format now changed to lunch items, which is completely different categories and different items than the breakfast menu. So my cron job fetched breakfast data at 9 a.m. and then users at 1 p.m. were maybe still seeing breakfast items, or we were in the process of like swapping it to lunch. There's a lot of like switching context. And then there was also real-time updates were gone. So when restaurants updated pricing or marked items as sold out or added daily special, these changes vanished until the next cron job ran like 10 minutes later. And even then, that cron job wasn't instant, right? It still needed to fetch all the items. So that cron job itself took like a couple minutes to run. And then problem three, I created what I'm calling a monster. I now had like 2 complex systems to maintain instead of 1. So there was a cron job that had to run perfectly. And then I also had to handle our original system. So I had edge cases on both sides. I was trying to avoid getting bugs on both sides. And really all we did was we traded slow response time for stale data. And in a restaurant app, wrong prices and wrong items are probably worse than slow loading times. And really for the next 3 days, I was working like 12-hour days trying to fix all these edge cases. But the story gets even worse before it gets better. And at this point, I was completely desperate. Like, I had 2 failed solutions. I had angry users, I had angry managers, and I was staring at the possibility of being moved off the project entirely. And it wasn't just me, it was my entire team. There was like 5 of us working on this thing. And that's when it actually like hit me that the answer has really just been staring in our face for the last few days. The actual change was like embarrassingly small compared to the elaborate solutions I was trying before. It was to cache. I implemented Redis as a memory data store that's perfect for caching to store all the API responses, but I'm kind of getting ahead of myself right now. Let me show you exactly what happened when I ran my first test. So I deployed the caching solution. So we implemented Redis, and the first request took the usual 4 seconds while the cache populated. But the second request was only 533 milliseconds. And I was like shocked by how fast caching was. Like, I couldn't really believe it. Our average response time dropped from 4,000 milliseconds to 533 milliseconds. That's literally 15 times faster. But the numbers were so dramatic that I initially thought there was a bug in my code, because I'm like, there's no way this is grabbing it like faster than I can even like blink. So here's exactly how the caching solution worked. So the first user, which I'm going to say like almost like the test user, they request menu items from like restaurant 1, 2, 3. We check Redis, there's no data found, which means the cache is empty. That means we call the third-party APIs. We do what we were doing before. We call the restaurant information, menu items, images. We process it all, get back that object, save it in Redis, and then return it back to the user. So we would then set that TTL for 8 hours, which means that object gets deleted in 8 hours. So the first user would still experience the 4-second load after the connection pulling it dropped from 8 to 4 seconds. But then all the other users after that, when they call that same restaurant, it would check Redis, find data, and return it immediately within 533 milliseconds. And the difference wasn't just speed. The user experience became completely consistent. Every user after the first one got the same blazing fast response, regardless of whether the third-party API was having problems, because we already cached it. So the first user is the first one that kind of experiences the issue, and then we cache everything. And what's awesome is this wasn't just faster, it was more reliable, predictable, and scalable because we already had the data. But here's what I didn't expect. The business impact was even bigger than the technical improvement. So this is why the simple solution was so effective. Let me break down exactly why caching works so well when all my other attempts failed. 1, it eliminated network dependency. Instead of making like 3 separate calls to third-party services for every user request, we only had to do that call once every 8 hours, because then we'd cache the rest of the data. 2, it can now handle real-time updates because we scheduled it for 8 hours. So we scheduled it for the end of breakfast and the start of lunch, and then like dinner and all that kind of stuff. We could always make sure the Redis had the newest items for the menu. And if a user needed to change something, we would change it and then delete the cache. So we had to just redo it, which was totally fine. Which is really not that bad of a solution because it just kept the code more simple. So unlike the cron job approach, which was like caching didn't require me to build complex synchronization logic or handle edge cases around data being stale, we just allowed the user to be able to update the data, and then we would call a trigger to our cache to reset, which made it a little bit more self-healing. If there was ever a problem with the cache data, it would automatically like fix itself when the cache expired, or when we called the trigger, which was like event-driven caching, we would then force our application to recache for a specific restaurant if something changed. But that's not even the crazy part. The business impact was even bigger than the technical metrics. So like from outside the developer view and what the executives saw, the order completion rate jumped to 18% because people were actually finishing their orders. The average order value increased by 12% because users had time to like browse desserts, and we had like some upsell items implemented. And the customer retention was increased by 31% because people came back. And probably the biggest of all, we quit hearing like bad reviews and having franchise owners call us, which was probably the best review overall. But here's what really blew my mind when I actually reflect is that like, even though my first 2 attempts failed, they taught me enough to make the proper cache solution later on. So like the first one with the connection pooling, that was crucial to get our endpoint from 8 seconds to 4 seconds. The second one, when we just did the cron job, when we took all the data and saved it in databases, that helped us know exactly what we needed to cache, what pieces of data is most likely to change. When did we know when the data changed? That's how we were able to set the TTL to 8 seconds. Every single thing had a part for us to be able to, implement Redis to the best case that we were able to. And what's crazy is this application is still running today, and I'm going to keep it. I'm not going to say what application it is. It's probably not supposed to be talked about, but it's still running today using the exact same caching strategy at 533 milliseconds. But if you think the story ends here, you're wrong, because what I learned from this experience changed how I really approach every performance problem that I have now. And I'm about to share those exact lessons with you. So here are like additional context, like 5 more performance lessons that will help you with your career. And you can like stop the video and like really digest what we're about to say, because I think everybody needs to know what these are. So lesson 1 is that simple beats complexity almost every single time. We spent days building elaborate workarounds, which was like the connection pooling, the parallel processing, and the cron jobs. All technically impressive in their own right, but none of them actually solved the problem we had. So before you architect a complex solution, ask yourself this to hopefully save some time. What's the simplest thing you can implement to fix the problem now? Lesson 2 is to measure everything early. If my team was able to monitor response times from day 1, I would not have been caught up in this whole development cycle. We were only using test data, which was, you can kind of think of it as like stale data because it wasn't production ready. So make sure you're testing with production data. Lesson 3 is that user experience trumps technical elegance always. My cron job solution was more technically sophisticated than the caching. It felt like real engineering if you had to put on like an engineering hat, but it was a worse user experience because of the stale data. The best technical solution is the one that works best for the users, not the ones that sound like the most impressive or the one that you can add to your resume. Just try and keep it as simple as possible. Now, lesson 4 is don't optimize prematurely, but think about scale. I built my application originally with test data, like I was saying before, a few restaurants, fake orders, fake traffic. It worked perfectly in our test and staging environment, but I never considered like what would happen with hundreds of restaurants and hundreds of thousands of concurrent users, and would we run into latency issues with our third-party application. And then lesson 5 is sometimes you need to question everything. So instead of just asking like, how do these APIs move faster, I should have asked myself, do I need these API calls every single time? So always ask yourself this perspective view: can I avoid doing this work entirely? Because caching might not be the answer all the time, but sometimes like just removing overhead or removing logic is the answer. And yes, in our situation, caching was the solution, but caching can also like really mess up your application if you don't use it right. So like, here's 4 caching mistakes to avoid if you want to implement caching, because like 90% of like caching implementations are not good. So here are some caching disasters to try to avoid. So like mistake 1 for caching is try not to cache everything. Like never cache high sensitive information like passwords, payment details, or personal data, or user specific information that could be leaked between sessions. Like you never want to grab the user's like first name, last name, email. I'd probably try and keep that all separate. Now this next mistake is known as like the Goldilocks mistake, where it's like trying to figure out the perfect balance for caching. You don't want to over cache and just keep fetching and always changing the data, but you also don't want it to go too long that it's stale. So it's really important to try and find the perfect balance so the caching actually is there to help increase your application. Now mistake 3 is don't just set it and forget it. Caching is not something that's simply like set and forget and it's going to improve your application by 15 times. There's a couple different types of caching, but you need to be able to change cache when needed. So make sure it's not just set and forget. And the mistake 4 that I see all the time, I don't even know what to call it, the memory monster. Caching uses RAM, and RAM is not unlimited. If you cache so much data in the very beginning, you might run out of memory, or your memory might go to swap to disk. Performance, and that will make everything slow down, and it'll add wear and tear to your disk. So only cache what you need. Sometimes the best performance optimization is making your code run faster, is making your code run less often. So your action plan, you might want to do this right now, is check your slowest API endpoint and just ask yourself, can I cache this response? If yes, implement simple caching with a reasonable TTL. That might be able to improve your application. Measure the before and after, like I should have probably done from the start. And from there, see if there's anything else you can cache. I mean, like caching is so powerful that it should be implemented in applications to really improve performance if you find a good fit for it. So with that, hope you enjoyed the story. Good luck, and I will see you in the next video.